I never thought moving day would turn into one of the most unexpected nights of my life. Seriously, I was just trying to get through it without breaking my back or losing my mind over how many boxes I somehow accumulated over the years. But then, out of nowhere, Jamie showed up, offered to help, and honestly, things got way more interesting than I ever planned. So here's the deal. I had been dragging my feet on moving out of my crappy studio apartment for months, mostly because I hate change, and partly because I'm lazy. But when I finally found a decent one-bedroom just a couple of neighborhoods over, I knew it was time to pack up and get it done. The new place is right near this little park I like to run through, and it has a tiny balcony that catches the morning sun perfectly. Perfect for coffee and pretending I'm a responsible adult. I'd told a few friends about the move, but no one really committed to helping. Except Jamie. He popped up like a surprise text mid-week, completely out of the blue. Jamie's the guy that first met at a mutual friend's birthday party a few months back. We hit it off immediately, mostly because he's hilarious, and has this way of making you feel comfortable, even when you're awkward as hell. Like me. He's got this easy, laid-back vibe, the kind of guy you talk to and suddenly wonder why you didn't realize how nice it is to actually have someone who gets you. Anyway, Jamie messaged me Thursday night, out of nowhere. Need an extra pair of hands for the big move on Saturday? I'm free. I wasn't going to say no to that. I mean, moving heavy furniture alone is a nightmare. And this guy? He's built like a linebacker, but moves with surprising grace. Plus, I was low-key excited to see him again, even if it was just to haul boxes. Saturday morning, Jamie showed up right on time, wearing one of those old band tees and those worn-in jeans that somehow still look cool. He had that easy grin, the one that makes you think maybe this day isn't going to be as miserable as moving days typically are. We grabbed some coffee and started in on the mountain of stuff I'd collected over the years. Boxes, bags, a questionable number of empty pizza boxes. Don't judge me. At first, it was just the usual moving day chaos. Bumping into each other in narrow hallways, trying to figure out what to carry next, and me accidentally dropping a box of books that sounded like a small earthquake. Jamie laughed, helped me pick everything up, and then, probably trying to keep my spirits up, told me stories about his own moving disasters. Turns out, this wasn't his first rodeo either. By late afternoon, we'd gotten most of the heavy stuff into the new place. The couch, which was basically a beast, went in last. Jamie somehow convinced me to order pizza instead of trying to cook something, which honestly might have saved my life. We ate sitting on the floor, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, and just talked about music, dumb movies, our terrible taste in TV shows. But here's where things started to shift from casual help to something I didn't see coming. As the sun dipped below the skyline, casting this golden glow through the big windows, Jamie looked around and said, "Man, you've got good taste in apartments. Feels like it's got a story already." I shrugged, trying to play it cool, but inside I was thinking maybe this new place wasn't just about a fresh start for my stuff. Maybe it was the start of something else. I don't know if Jamie felt it too, but when he said, "Do you want to hang out here for a bit? I don't have to go anywhere," I didn't hesitate. Turns out, he didn't just want to hang out. He stayed the night. And that's when everything got complicated. In the best possible way. I barely even realized what I was agreeing to when Jamie said, "Do you want to hang out here for a bit? I don't have to go anywhere." It felt like one of those moments where you just go with the flow because, honestly, the day had been exhausting and I didn't want to be alone in that half-empty apartment just staring at my boxes and wondering if I'd ever get around to unpacking them. So yeah, Jamie stayed the night. After we finished the pizza, we dragged a couple of those moving blankets over to the couch and just crashed there, which felt weirdly comfortable. I mean, who just casually has someone stay over the first day they move in? Not me. But with Jamie, it felt natural. Like, I didn't have to pretend or act like the awkward mess I usually am around new people. We talked for hours. Nothing heavy. Just random stuff about childhood memories, favorite songs, that kind of thing. I found out he's a bit of a music nerd, which wasn't exactly a surprise, but hearing him nerd out about bands I'd never even heard of made me smile more than I wanted to admit. And when it was my turn to share, I got a little nervous, but instead of judging, he just listened. Really listened. That's rare. At some point, the conversation drifted to relationships. I tried to dodge it at first, but Jamie, Being the smooth guy he is made it impossible. "So, ever had a move-in night before kind of thing turn into more than just a move?" he teased, raising an eyebrow. I laughed, a little awkward. "Honestly, no. Usually, I'm lucky if I don't get a backache from all the lifting." He chuckled, then got a bit quieter. "Well, sometimes the unexpected stuff turns out to be the best stuff. You never know until you let it happen." That stuck with me. I was used to planning everything, even my dating life, down to the last detail. But Jamie's easygoing attitude made me wonder if I'd been too rigid, too scared to just roll with it. Eventually, the lights went out, and we ended up side by side on that couch, the city lights peeking through the window behind us. I felt a little self-conscious because, well, this was way out of my comfort zone. But Jamie just reached over, nudged my shoulder, and said, "You okay?" I nodded, heart racing for reasons I didn't want to overthink. Something about the way he looked at me, like he was genuinely interested, was both thrilling and terrifying. Neither of us made a move that night, which was probably for the best. Just having him there felt like a tiny revolution for me, proof that sometimes you don't have to have it all figured out to have a good night. The next morning, I woke up with sunlight streaming in and a slight crick in my neck from sleeping on the couch. Jamie was already up, making terrible coffee in my tiny kitchen. I watched him fumbling with the espresso machine and smiled. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just a random favor or a one-off help session. It felt like the beginning of something. He caught me staring and grinned. "Morning, sleepyhead." "Morning. Thanks for sticking around," I said, still feeling a little shy. "No problem. Moving, please, Mez. Company makes it better." We spent the rest of the day unpacking together. I was surprised at how easy it felt having him around, like some invisible weight had lifted. At one point, we paused to sit on the balcony with beers, just watching the world go by. Jamie told me about his last serious relationship, which didn't end well, and I shared a bit about why I'd been so hesitant to open up to anyone. It was refreshing, the way we could be honest without pressure or judgment. I realized I hadn't had that in a long time. Later that night, as we rearranged some furniture and debated where the TV should go, Jamie made a joke about me being too picky. I shot back, teasing him about his obsession with perfect lighting for his Instagram aesthetic. We both laughed, and in that moment, everything just felt right. I'm not gonna lie, I was scared too. Scared that I'd mess it up, that I'd get too attached too fast. But with Jamie, it felt like maybe I didn't have to be scared. Maybe I could let someone in without losing myself. When he finally left, it was with a promise to come back, and maybe help me hang some shelves next weekend. I found myself looking around my new apartment differently now. It wasn't just a space filled with boxes and furniture. It was a place where something new could start, something real. And honestly, I can't wait to see where this goes. The week after moving in was a blur of unpacking, figuring out where things went, and trying to pretend I wasn't secretly enjoying having Jamie around. He actually did come back the next weekend, just like he promised, and help me hang those damn shelves I'd been putting off. Honestly, I think he enjoyed bossing me around a little, telling me to hold the drill steady or maybe step left a bit, and I didn't mind one bit. There was a comfort in having him there, like things were starting to fall into place, not just in the apartment, but in my head as well. That afternoon, after we finished the shelves and I dusted off the sweat from my forehead, Jamie stayed to help me arrange some pictures on the wall. We had this easy rhythm, talking about dumb stuff and sometimes getting distracted by old photos or random knickknacks I found in boxes. At one point, I showed him a picture of me and my younger brother from when we were kids, both of us laughing like idiots at the beach. Jamie looked at it for a second, then smiled. "You look happy there." I shrugged, feeling a little vulnerable. "Yeah, we were." Before things got complicated. He nodded, like he understood more than I was willing to say. Sometimes it's good to hold on to those moments. They remind you who you really are. I wasn't used to people saying things like that. Usually I kept my guard up, but with Jamie, it felt natural to let my walls down a little. Maybe it was the way he listened, really listened, that made the difference. After that, we slipped into this casual routine. Drinks after work, movie nights that always ended with us arguing over the best Marvel hero, and long walks through the park near my place. It wasn't like anything was labeled or forced, but some part of me started hoping it was becoming something more. One night, about 2 weeks after the move, We were sitting on my balcony, sharing a bottle of wine, and watching the city lights flicker below. The air was warm and sweet, and the hum of the city in the background made everything feel like one of those scenes in a movie where the characters are about to change everything. Jamie reached over and brushed a stray hair from my forehead. I swear my heart almost stopped. I looked at him, trying to read what was in his eyes. Was it just friendship or something else? Before I could second-guess myself, he said softly, "You know, I'm really glad I came to help you move that day." I smiled, feeling a little breathless. Me too. There was a pause, that quiet kind that's electric and full of everything unsaid. Then Jamie leaned closer, just a bit, and I caught the faint scent of his cologne mixed with the warm night air. "Hey," he said, voice low, "I don't want to rush anything, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't hoping this, whatever it is, goes somewhere." My head was spinning, but I found the courage to meet his gaze. I feel the same. That night, nothing dramatic happened. No big declarations or awkward fumbling. Just a quiet understanding that maybe, finally, I was ready to let someone in for real. But, of course, life isn't all sunsets and perfect moments. The next day, I woke up to a text from Jamie. "Can we talk? Something's come up." My stomach dropped. That's the kind of text you never want to get when things are just starting to feel right. I stared at my phone for what felt like forever before typing back, "Yeah, what's up?" He called instead of texting back, and the tone in his voice was serious, almost hesitant. He told me he'd been offered a job in another city, something he couldn't refuse. It was a great opportunity, one he'd been chasing for a while. I was torn between wanting to be happy for him and feeling like my chest was being squeezed. We hadn't even really started, and now this? Jamie said he wanted to be honest because he didn't want to start something he couldn't follow through on. But then, he added, "I don't want to lose what we have, even if it's just this." I didn't know what to say. I told him I understood, but part of me was scared. Scared of what distance would do. Scared of losing the chance we'd barely begun to explore. Over the next few days, we talked more, late-night calls, texts that stretched into the morning, and promises to figure it out together. It wasn't easy. I saw him less, and the apartment started to feel a little emptier without his laugh bouncing off the walls. But somewhere in that uncertainty, I realized something important. It wasn't just about where he was or when we saw each other. It was about what we were building. The trust, the connection, the hope. One evening, just before his move, he came over one last time. We sat on the balcony again, this time holding hands, a little tighter than before. "I don't know what's next," he said, looking out at the city lights, "but I want to try with you." And I knew right then that whatever happened, this wasn't just some random moving day story. It was the start of something real, something worth fighting for. The night Jamie left felt both heavy and hopeful all at once. We didn't say much, just held each other on the balcony, the city lights stretching out below us like some quiet promise. I squeezed his hand tighter than I probably should have, not ready to let go but knowing I had to. The kind of moment where you want to freeze time but also accept it's moving forward, with or without you. Jamie's move was a whirlwind. Between packing his stuff, last-minute work meetings, and the emotional goodbyes, I barely saw him in the days leading up to his flight. We tried to squeeze in as much time together as possible, coffee mornings, quick dinners, late-night phone calls that ended in sleep-deprived laughter. But the inevitable was coming, and it felt like a punch to the gut every time I thought about the distance that was about to stretch between us. The morning he left, I drove him to the airport. It was weird, sitting in the car with him, knowing this was it for now. We both tried to act casual, but the silence was thick with everything unsaid. When we finally reached the terminal, I walked him inside, lingering as long as I could before saying goodbye. "Call me when you land," I said, my voice tighter than I wanted. Jamie smiled that easy grin I'd come to love, but there was a softness in his eyes that made me want to drop everything and just hold him close. Of course, and with that, he disappeared through the security gates, and the apartment felt emptier than ever. In the days that followed, I found myself staring at my phone more than I cared to admit, waiting for his messages, replaying our conversations, and trying to hold on to the feeling of his hand in mine on that balcony. The city around me kept moving, but inside, I was stuck in a kind of quiet limbo, wondering if this distance would break what we'd started or somehow make it stronger. We kept up the calls, sometimes long, sometimes brief, but every time I heard his voice, it was like a lifeline. We shared silly stories about our days, frustrations with work, and the little things that made us laugh. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. One night, about a week in, Jamie called me out of the blue. I was sitting on the couch, half watching a show I wasn't really paying attention to, when my phone buzzed. "Hey," he said, voice low and a little rough. "Can I be honest?" "Always," I replied, sitting up straighter. He hesitated for a moment. "I miss you, more than I expected, and it's messing with my head." I smiled, feeling a knot loosen in my chest. "I miss you too. It's hard, but we'll figure it out." That night, we talked for hours, making plans for visits, promising to be honest, even when it got tough. It felt like a fragile thread connecting us across the miles, but I clung to it because it was something real. A few weeks later, Jamie surprised me. He showed up at my door unannounced, suitcase in hand, and that same grin that had made moving day unforgettable. "I couldn't wait," he said simply. I let him in, heart pounding like crazy. We spent the weekend like nothing had changed, exploring the neighborhood, cooking terrible meals, and just being together. It was everything I didn't know I needed, but the reality of his job and the distance still loomed. After he left again, I realized that if this was going to work, we had to be more than just weekend warriors. We needed a plan. One night, over one of our video calls, I blurted out, "What if one of us made a move?" Like, really moved? Jamie was quiet for a moment. "I've thought about it, more than I let on." "Because?" I asked, heart racing. "Because it's scary. I have a life here, and I don't want to mess things up. But you make me want to try." It was the most honest thing he'd said yet, and I felt the weight of it. Maybe this was what love really was. Messy, complicated, uncertain, but also worth every risk. Over the next few months, we talked about everything, the logistics, fears, hopes. And slowly, the idea of Jamie moving here started to feel less like a question and more like a plan. It wasn't easy, and there were moments I doubted if we could pull it off. But every time I thought about him being here, in this apartment, on the balcony where all this started, I felt a spark of hope. One evening, Jamie called me, his voice excited but nervous. "I'm thinking of taking the job here. It's still tentative, but it's looking good." I didn't hesitate. "That's amazing. I want that." We stayed on the call long after that, dreaming about what could be. Future dinners, lazy Sundays, waking up together without having to say goodbye. For the first time in a long time, it felt like the future was something to look forward to. And as I sat there, phone in hand, the city lights outside my window, I realized that sometimes the best stories start with a little help moving and a lot of unexpected bravery. When Jamie finally made the move, it felt surreal. Like a dream I'd been tiptoeing around, but wasn't sure I was ready to face head on. He showed up with 2 suitcases, a box of his favorite records, and that familiar grin that still managed to knock the wind out of me. I met him at the door, my heart pounding like a drum solo, half expecting to trip over my words or just stand there like a total idiot. Instead, I managed a shaky, "Welcome home," and he stepped inside, looking around the apartment like it was suddenly more alive. The first few days were a mix of chaos and quiet moments. Unpacking, figuring out where to put things, and the smallest gestures that suddenly felt huge, like him leaving his coffee mug on the counter or me making breakfast for 2 instead of 1. It was those little things that made it real. One night, after a long day of setting up the place, we found ourselves on the balcony again, the city lights flickering below like some kind of private light show. Jamie had that look, soft eyes, a half smile that made me want to forget every awkward thing I'd ever said around him. "Feels different, doesn't it?" he said, nudging my shoulder. Yeah, I agreed, the word feeling too small for what I was thinking. "Like this is where I'm supposed to be." He laughed quietly. "You're full of surprises." I shrugged, trying to play it cool, but inside I felt like I was about to explode from how much I cared. "Maybe moving's not so bad when you don't do it alone." Jamie reached over and took my hand. No flash, no big dramatic moment, just that simple touch that somehow said everything without words. Living together brought its own set of challenges, of course. There were moments when our different routines clashed. Jamie's early morning jogs versus my night owl tendencies. The way he liked everything neat and I was, well, not. But even in those little friction points, there was room for laughter and compromise. And that made all the difference. One night, I came home late after a rough day at work, dragging my feet through the door like I was carrying the weight of the world. Jamie was already there, cooking something that smelled way better than I deserved. "Rough day?" he asked, eyes full of concern. I slumped onto the couch and let out a long sigh. "You could say that." Without a word, he sat beside me, wrapping an arm around my shoulder. It was the kind of comfort I hadn't realized I craved, a quiet reminder that I wasn't alone. "Hey," he said softly, "whatever it is, we'll get through it. Together." I looked at him, the way the soft light caught his face, and felt something inside me shift. It wasn't just about surviving the tough days anymore. It was about building something that felt like home. Weeks turned into months, and with Jamie here, the apartment slowly stopped feeling like just a space and started feeling like ours. We found little traditions: Sunday brunches, lazy movie marathons, dancing badly in the kitchen to songs no one else would hear. The kind of stuff that sounds cliché, but feels like magic when it's real. One evening, after one of those perfect, messy movie nights, Jamie leaned his head on my shoulder and whispered, "I'm glad I stayed that night you moved in." I smiled, heartful. Me too. Best accident ever. But as much as things felt right, there was that quiet voice in the back of my mind reminding me that relationships take work, that life throws curveballs when you least expect it. And sure enough, one day, Jamie got a call about an unexpected project at work that would demand long hours and travel. The timing couldn't have been worse. For a moment, I felt that old fear creeping in. What if this distance thing started all over again? We talked it out late into the night, raw and honest. Jamie admitted he was scared of how it might change us, and I told him I was scared too, but that I wanted to fight for us no matter what. It wasn't easy. There were nights when the apartment felt too quiet, and mornings when I missed him before my coffee even kicked in. But every time I doubted, he found a way to remind me why this was worth it. Like the day he surprised me with tickets to a concert for one of my favorite bands, just because he remembered me saying it was a dream to see them live. Or when he stayed up to watch a terrible TV show with me just because I needed the company. One night, after a particularly stressful week, Jamie showed up at my door unannounced, looking exhausted but smiling. I couldn't stand being apart, he said, pulling me into a hug that felt like coming home. We collapsed onto the couch, the kind of quiet exhaustion that only comes from knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Looking back, it's crazy to think all of this started with a simple offer to help me move. That day turned into a night, and that night turned into so much more. It's messy, unpredictable, and sometimes scary, but with Jamie, it's also the most real thing I've ever had. And honestly, I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's funny how life has a way of sneaking up on you when you least expect it. I mean, there I was, just trying to settle into my new place with Jamie around, thinking maybe things would finally calm down after all the chaos of moving and long-distance uncertainty. But nope, turns out the universe had other plans. A few months in, Jamie got a promotion at work. Sounds great, right? Except it meant more travel, more late nights, and suddenly our carefully built routines started to wobble. I won't lie, it was tough. I found myself pacing the apartment alone on nights when he was on the road, staring at my phone, wondering if he was safe, missing the easy laughter that used to fill these rooms. One night, after a particularly long day where nothing seemed to go right, my boss was being a nightmare, my phone died, and I burned dinner, Jamie called. His voice was tired but warm as always, and somehow hearing him made the day's weight lift a little. "How are you holding up?" he asked. I sighed. "Honestly, not great. Feels like everything's falling apart." There was silence on the other end before he said, "I hate that I'm not there to help, but I believe in us. We just have to keep communicating, okay?" That phrase, "I believe in us," hit me harder than I expected. It was the kind of reassurance I didn't realize I desperately needed. We ended up talking for hours that night, sharing frustrations and fears, but also hopes. We made plans. Silly little goals like watching the same movie simultaneously or sending goofy photos to brighten each other's day. It wasn't the same as having him here, but it helped bridge the gap. Then came the weekend when Jamie surprised me by showing up unannounced. I was sitting on the couch, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes from my latest obsession with online shopping, when I heard a knock at the door. Opening it, I blinked twice. There he was, his suitcase in hand, with that grin that could melt glaciers. "You didn't think I'd let a weekend go by without seeing you, did you?" he said, stepping inside like he belonged. We spent that weekend like we were stealing time from the world. Long walks through the park, trying to cook new recipes which mostly ended in smoke alarms, and late-night talks that stretched until dawn. But the highlight was that Saturday night on the balcony. We sat close, wrapped in a shared blanket, the city alive beneath us. Jamie looked at me, something soft and serious in his eyes. "Do you ever think about us? Like, really think about what this means?" I hesitated, heart pounding. "All the time." He reached out, fingers tracing a lazy line down my arm. "Because I want this. I want you. Even if it's messy or complicated." I smiled, feeling that familiar warmth spread through me. Me too. That weekend felt like a turning point. We weren't just surviving the chaos anymore. We were building something that felt real, something worth fighting for. Of course, it wasn't all perfect. There were moments when the distance felt unbearable, when I scrambled to hide my jealousy after Jamie had a night out with coworkers, or when I snapped at him over dumb little things, just because I missed him more than I wanted to admit. But in those moments, we talked. We didn't let the silence grow loud with misunderstandings. We chose honesty, even when it was uncomfortable. One evening, Jamie sent me a voice message after a long day. His voice was quiet, almost vulnerable. "I know this isn't easy, but I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Hearing that, I felt my walls crumble a little. Maybe love wasn't about being perfect or having it all figured out. Maybe it was about showing up, day after day, even when it was hard. Fast forward to now, a year after that first moving day, when Jamie helped me haul boxes and stayed the night. The apartment is no longer just mine, it's ours. The scratches on the wooden floor from when we tried to assemble a new bookshelf, the mismatched mugs in the kitchen cabinet, the photo of us laughing on that first balcony night, they're all pieces of a story we're writing together. Sure, the future is still uncertain. Jamie's work keeps him busy, and sometimes life throws curveballs that test us. But there's this steady current beneath everything, a connection that's real and messy and beautiful. And you know what? I wouldn't trade it for the world. Because sometimes, the best things happen when you least expect them. Like when a guy comes over to help you move and ends up staying the night, and maybe, just maybe, staying for a lifetime. It's funny. Looking back, I never imagined that a day spent moving boxes and unpacking odds and ends would turn into this whole life, this unexpected chapter I didn't know I was ready for. Jamie helping me wasn't just about the heavy lifting. It was about showing up, about companionship when I least expected it. And that first night he stayed, that was the start of something real. Now, sitting here on that same balcony, the city lights twinkling below, I realize how much has changed, and yet how much feels the same. Jamie's across from me, stirring his coffee, that easy grin playing at the corners of his mouth. There's a quiet comfort in just being together. No grand gestures needed, just the steady presence of someone who's become my home. We've navigated the ups and downs, the long-distance stretches, the work stress, the moments when uncertainty crept in. But through it all, we kept choosing each other. That's what it feels like love, is sometimes not fireworks and perfect scenes, but the quiet decisions, the small acts of care when no one's watching. I remember a conversation we had not long ago when Jamie looked at me and said, "I don't want to imagine my life without you in it." And I felt that same steady warmth, like I'd finally found a place where I belonged. This isn't a story about a whirlwind romance or a fairy tale ending. It's about two people figuring it out, day by day, stumble by stumble, learning how to be there for each other. It's messy, imperfect, but it's ours. So tonight, as we sit wrapped in a blanket, sharing a laugh over a silly inside joke, I feel that quiet, deep kind of happiness. The kind that doesn't need to be shouted from rooftops but fills you up all the same. Moving day was just the beginning. What came after, the late night talks, the shared meals, the distance and the closeness, that's the real story. And I'm grateful for every unexpected moment that led me here. Because sometimes, the best help you can get isn't just a pair of strong hands. It's someone who stays, someone who chooses to stay.